Hello and welcome to French 2. The syllabus here to show you, which may seem familiar to you from French 1. By the end of French 2, students will be able to speak, listen, read, and write at a novice high to intermediate mid-level of proficiency about topics related to celebrations, travel, home life, food, daily life, and school life. And we'll also demonstrate some basic cultural and geographical competencies that pertain to France and Francophone European countries. In subsequent years, we'll learn more about the French-speaking world that includes Africa, Asia, the Antilles, and French Polynesia. Students at the end of last year achieved a level 1 to 2 levels higher than the state standard. And so I was really proud of them when I saw their Apple scores at the end of last year. If your student hasn't shared that with you, let me know and I can send you their scores. Throughout the year, we'll take integrated performance assessments, which are not graded, but instead just measure the proficiency of your student in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And I'd be happy to share those scores with you throughout the year so you can see how much they're improving in their abilities to understand and to produce French. The lesson calendar here, we'll start off with the book that we did, that we saw last year, so you'll recognize this. But we will also get into the second book by the end of the year. Additional materials needed are a notebook, a pen or pencil, and when we return, a charged iPad. Most of the time I put the notes in Schoology in the weekly folders, but there will of course be times when students will want to take additional notes. The grade this year has changed slightly from how I did it last year. There are just 2 categories of grades in Schoology, one called formative and one called summative. Formative are any of those assignments that we do to practice French along the way, and students have opportunities to revise those to learn from their assignments along the way. This will also include class projects, discussion, participation. And then there are summative, which includes such things as tests, quizzes, and anything that we do to prove what we've learned along the way. They're not weighted. I'm going to be using a total point system this year. Additional notes in Schoology that will apply to your student that they'll recognize from last year, so we won't go over. But I always want to remind everyone that if your student feels like they need extra help, there are a lot of opportunities to do that, namely when we return study hall before or after school, but also digitally via Zoom or emailing me. I referenced the proficiency levels and what your student should be able to do, and here they are. So we can see the novice range, which was students can communicate with formulaic and rote utterances, lists, and phrases. But your students will get into the intermediate range this year, where they can create with language, ask and answer simple questions on familiar topics, and handle a simple situation or transaction. I'd also like to show you the Schoology folders that I have set up where you can access information, where your students can access information. I'm using the browser version of Schoology here, but so the app will look a bit different, but everything should still be there. So if we take a look, for example, at last week's folder, you can see that I have all of the notes as well as all of the homework practice sheets, the assignments that are listed and when they're due. And throughout the year, I may also be putting in videos which students can watch where I explain grammar topics, and then they'll have access to those notes at home.